You are listening to Stories from Real Life, a podcast by engaging storytellers for engaged story listeners. Here's your host, author and journalist, Melvin E. Edwards.
Hello, and welcome to this March 5th episode of Stories from Real Life. I'm your host, Melvin E. Edwards, and I'm happy to be joined on today's show by travel agent Rachel Taylor. Rachel, welcome to Stories from Real Life.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Rachel Taylor is a no-cost travel agent driven by a knack for research, a passion for discovery, and a love for Disney theme parks. Rachel has been married for nearly 2 decades and has 4 children, ages 11, 9, and then the 5-year-old twins. They make their home in Georgia, which means we've had back-to-back episodes with guests from that state. So, Rachel, let's go right into the questions.
Okay.
Have you always had a love for travel?
It's a good question. I've not always had the ability to travel or done a lot of traveling all growing up. I've never not loved travel. It just wasn't always something that was available to me or kind of on my radar. So growing up, we really didn't travel much. So like you said, I live in Atlanta, grew up in Atlanta, so Atlanta native. So we always had easy access to, if we did anything, we'd maybe go to the beach in Florida every now and then, not super often. But I've always, I guess, liked the idea of it. And I actually grew up in a small town about 30 miles outside of Atlanta. But we went to church in downtown in Atlanta. And so 2 or 3 times a week, we were there all the time. And so we were in the city, which was just kind of normal to me. And I can remember friends and, kids in the neighborhood like, you went into Atlanta today? Yeah, that's what we do. So I kind of had a taste for the big city and always liked the idea of that. Like, I want to live in a big city. I want to go see the big cities. So I think the first time I actually flew on an airplane, I was probably 14 and flew to New York with my family and just like instantly fell in love. Just the lights, the sounds, just always something going on. It was just so exciting to me. And so I'm like, okay, I always felt like I was a city girl at heart. I guess I really am. So I loved that. And that was kind of the first place. We went there actually several times when I was in my teenage years. So I guess that was kind of my first taste of it a little bit. And then let's see, when my husband and I got married, we got married young. I was 23, so pretty soon out of college. And we, even though I hadn't traveled a lot, I was more adventurous than my husband. And so I pushed him. I was like, we got to at least go to another country. Like, we can't stay in the U.S. So we ended up going to Cancun. I like twisted his arm and talked him into that, which these days he would completely be on board. But at the time, we're both kids and it's all new. And he's a little slower to kind of step out of his comfort zone. So I'm like, okay, got him there. This is going to be great. So we stayed at an all-inclusive. So that was our first time experiencing anything like that. And it was fun in a lot of ways, but it's funny. I envisioned in my head, we're going to do all these things. We're going to go on all these excursions and experience the culture. My husband's like, no, I like it right here in my cozy little resort. We don't need to go anywhere. So I did talk him into doing one excursion. Was all he was going to do. So I'm like, okay, I can work with that. So I went down to the excursions desk to see what I could book. And I booked a glass bottom boat tour. And I thought, well, that sounds really fun. Just look through the bottom of the boat, see some fish, nothing too major. Not realizing that a glass bottom boat, you're under the water. Felt like, you're just all sitting in a row, front to back, kind of feel like you're in a submarine, which isn't really good for people who get motion sickness. So our one excursion was not very fun at all, but I survived it. And anyway, but we still loved, that was, I think, kind of warmed us both up to it a little bit and got, just kind of got my husband especially warmed up to it a little bit more, that he was open, as time went on. But then I think probably, and I never really even fully thought about this until recently, and even preparing to talk to you today, Melvin. So one of my not my very first job, but my first corporate job out of college, worked in Treasury Department for a large quick service restaurant chain. And my boss in Treasury, he's actually from South Africa. That's where he was born and raised, but he's now a U.S. citizen. But he's probably the biggest traveler I've ever met in my life. And he and his wife, take at least one massive, huge trip every year, sometimes more. And he was just so encouraging to everyone. Like, there's such a big world to see. There's so much out there. You're not meant to stay in one place. And one thing he encouraged me to do was to just get a passport, not for a particular reason, but I never had a passport. Because back, on 2005, when we went on our honeymoon, you didn't even have to have the passport to go to Cancun. Now you do, but to go to Mexico at the time, you didn't have to. So we got our passports. Like, he says we should get our passport. I guess we'll get our passport. And then not long, I don't know if it was weeks or months afterwards, but not long after, some friends of ours, we just had a completely last minute opportunity to join them on the first leg of their trip to Europe. That's actually where they were. She was from Germany, where she grew up, and her husband was at an American school there. His dad was in the military, and they're got to be some of our dearest friends. But they were going to visit family and vacation too. And I don't remember the exact circumstances, but somehow it just presented itself at the last minute. And it's like, you want to go to Europe a week from now? And we're like, well, we've got work. I don't know how that's going to work out. My husband's always been self-employed, so it was easier for him. But I'm like, I have a corporate job here. But my boss was so supportive, and he was like, absolutely, you have the chance to do it. And so we did. And that's a trip I'll never forget. It was so fun. That was back before we had kids and just had so much more freedom to do what we wanted, just on a whim, and do a road trip through Europe and not have to worry about packing for little ones and all of that. So, other than our trip to Mexico, I'd never left the U.S. And our country is so new. There's nothing old here, but the history and just, it literally stepping into another world. And even just, the 3 countries we went to in a short time period, it just fascinated me how to go from, you're in one country and you drive for a few hours and you're in another country, but not just by name, it's another country, another language, another culture, everything looks different. It's a different place. And so it was just, a whole new world to me. So that was super fun.
So I know you started out your career in finance before going into your own travel industry business. So I want to know, was it more challenging handling unpredictable financial markets or unpredictable toddlers?
I would say unpredictable toddlers for sure. If there's a problem in the corporate world, you can at least expect everyone involved to hopefully act like adults. But they're, toddlers do their own thing and have their own ideas, and you can't control it. So you just got to go with the flow. There's not really a blueprint for it. So it's definitely been challenging. It's been so rewarding to be a stay-at-home mom for all those years, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But the other thing is it never ends. You can't just turn it off. So work, you could somewhat leave at work. But not so with being home with little ones. But
yeah, I'm the father of 4 also. And I remember before our first one was born, I read all these child rearing books. I thought, I'm going to be the best dad ever. And when the baby was born, when she was a toddler, when she was a young kid, I realized she didn't read the same books I read.
No.
She's sort of doing her own thing, and I don't remember the response for this.
Yeah, I think we all do that before we become parents. I would never, and I'll always, and just all out the window. We're just flying by the seat of our pants. Go ahead.
I was going to say, one thing I learned early on is never take parenting advice from somebody without kids.
Yeah, it's very true. Okay, thank you for your input. But you don't know my kids. I was going to say, when I had my twins, at the time my kids were 6, 4, And then I had newborn twins. And I mean, it's still chaos, but they're getting to the point they're 5 now. So it's a little bit, a little more independent. You know, don't need quite as much hand holding, but especially those first couple years, people would be like, oh, I just don't, how do you do it? How do you do it all? And I'm like, barely. That's just kind of barely, just keep them alive, keep them fed, you know, do the best I can. Like, you can't set the bar too high, and hopefully they'll turn out all right, but we're only human. So
it's a challenge. The memories are fun and the years are short. The days are long and the years are short, as I've heard it said. And it's definitely true. My youngest one will be 25 this year, and it's amazing how fast time flies. Yeah, it really does. It's crazy. My oldest is in middle school now. I'm like, how did that happen? So when you decided to leave your career, or why did you decide to leave your career? And do you think you'll ever return to that former life?
That's a good question. I had always, in theory at least, wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. You know, my mom stayed home with us growing up, and that's not the path for everybody, but it's just what I felt like I wanted to do with my family. But when I had my first child, we just weren't at a point yet financially where we felt like it made sense. And so I did, though it just circumstances worked out perfectly at that time. My company was relocating and I didn't want to move. So I was going to be having to find something new. And I ended up taking a job as a relationship manager for a credit card processing company, which was one of our suppliers that I had worked closely with. So I was just kind of on the opposite end of the job I'd done before. But I was able to do that working from home completely remotely, which was really nice. So we had a full-time nanny because I was working a full-time job. So, but to physically be under the same roof, you know, was like the next best thing. I could take a lunch break and go eat with my son, or, you know, pop in and see what game they're playing or whatever. So that made it a little bit easier. And then when my daughter was born 2.5 years later, it's like, are you ever ready to quit work? It's always a scary thing to do. And we still weren't planning to do it quite yet. I thought, well, maybe I'll need to go back for about a year. My husband had just entered a career in real estate, you know, and that takes time to establish. It's not like on paper the smartest thing for me to quit my job when he started a new career. But at the last minute, right before it's time for me to go back, our nanny, who we had kept part-time because I didn't want to lose her, she decided she didn't want to work full-time anymore. She wanted to do something different. And so we lost her. So I had to quickly decide in a matter of days, probably maybe a week, am I going to start over and try to figure something out with the kids? Or am I just going to take a leap of faith and just trust that God will provide? And that's what we did. So I was like, hey guys, I really did plan to come back, but it's not going to work out. So I'm done. And it thankfully worked out for the best. You know, so grateful it worked out as well as it did. And it's been fine. So no looking back. So that was kind of the slow process to get to that point. But I've been grateful to have gotten there.
Nice. Okay, so let's talk about your travel agency and your travel experiences. So tell us about Vacation Magic by Rachel. Is this Rachel person conjuring up vacations by doing some kind of magic? Is this some kind of like Harry Potter kind of deal?
I wish. If I figure that out, I'll let you know. That would certainly serve me well in this industry. So our family, we like to travel, you know, since having kids, it's kind of harder to do as many elaborate overseas type trips. We sort of put some of that on pause for a while. But we go to Disney a lot. Living in Atlanta, it's a pretty easy drive. Sometimes I think I love Disney more than my kids do. So they're like, we're going back again. And so it's just, and I didn't really grow up going to Disney, and I just kind of fell in love with that magic of Disney. And I had my own travel agent, someone I'd known for years growing up actually, and she specialized in Disney. And so that was when I first kind of reconnected with her to help in planning our trips in those early days, and like learned so much from her. And had kind of thought in the back of my mind, like, this is something I might be interested in doing someday. And I do much more than Disney, but that was kind of, I guess, my comfort initially going into it. As many times as we traveled, I felt like I needed her help less and less. I still had her book my travel, and she was great to turn to if I needed something. But I was like, I think I could do this. And I found myself, offering advice to friends and family, anyone who was going. And so just that magic is just something that, I don't know, stirs something in me and inspires me. So it's kind of a nod to that, but also I just I try to infuse that in everything I do. I really like to try to think outside the box for my clients, and find ways to be creative. And, for booking a cruise, it's like, hey, we could put a large family, 3 in this room and 2 in that room, or we could do floor or different configurations that'll get you a better deal depending on the situation and things like that. And I was doing something similar to that the other day, and my client said, and I said, are you okay doing it with this way or this way? And she was like, yeah, go ahead, work your magic. I don't know if she was trying to, I think that was her nod to the name of my company, but I was like, hey, that's fitting. So that's kind of part of it too, just trying to really, I like to try to figure things out and think outside the box and figure things out. I love to research. And so that's what, one thing that I love so much about doing this.
All right. So what's your favorite part about booking a trip for someone else?
That's a good question. Just feeling like I'm able to make a difference. And honestly, I love travel, but I love the process of it all. So even when I'm not actively planning a trip for myself, I always tell my clients, I feel like I'm, just living vicariously through you. So, I know how much joy it brings me and my family. And so to be able to help someone else make that become a reality for them is really rewarding. And I love that. And the other thing I love is when I get to surprise my clients with free money. So sometimes that can be an advantage to booking with a travel agent. I always try to go back. You can't do it in every case, but with a lot of suppliers, even if you book at a certain rate, they'll let, as a travel agent, I can reprice someone if a better deal comes available. So I always try to kind of stay on top of it and see, I don't just book it and then leave them high and dry. So it's nice when I can be like, hey, surprise, I can save you $1,000. Here you go. Your refund's on the way or whatever.
Nice.
So yeah.
So I did see something similar to that you did recently. You posted on social media about saving somebody $775. That's pretty nice.
Yeah. I've actually got several families booked on the same cruise. So I repriced all of their rooms and they were really excited. And then a friend of mine and a client who's booked on another cruise at another time, she said, was I one of those? And I was like, well, not yet. I've been checking for you. And she said, I like that. Not yet. And then sure enough, I checked again that night and I was like, oh, surprise. And then was able to get her some better rates too. So yeah, so that's always
money.
Yeah.
All right. So before I tell you this part, I'll make it clear. My son and his fiance have already booked their trip, so I wish I'd known about your service earlier.
Oh, but if okay.
They're getting married in May and going on a honeymoon. Okay. So if you soon, yeah. So if you met a young couple who were about to get married, what kind of honeymoon would you set them up on? What would be a fantasy type of honeymoon that you would be able to share and devise for them?
Yeah. I think every couple is different. So, first I would, depends on what their budget is. Do they like adventure? Do they just want to relax and chill and not have to stress about anything? Do they have their passports? Everyone should have a passport. That's a lesson I learned many years ago. You should have it and be ready. But yeah, anything from, I think all-inclusive resorts can be a really nice option for couples. And really for any budget. You can go to some more luxury resorts, adults only kind of thing. And if you want to splurge, but there are a lot of affordable places in the Caribbean and Mexico, that are, especially when you look at everything being included, that are more budget friendly than you might think. So that's always a good option. Cruises are all across the spectrum for all budgets, really. I mean, there's budget cruises, there's luxury cruise lines. You can cruise across the world. So again, depending on what they're interested in, is that something that they would like to do? Like an advantage to that is getting to see multiple destinations on one trip, but you don't have to unpack. So that could be a good fit for a lot of people. And then of course there's Hawaii, or I've always wanted to visit like French Polynesia, those kinds of places, if you're wanting to, do something more luxury. So, I mean, there's so many choices. Even some like exotic destinations that you might not think of as being, and I say, it depends on the budget. I'm actually working on a post for my blog though, about like surprisingly affordable more luxury honeymoon destinations. And so places like Bali and Prague, compared to other places in Europe, Prague can be a lot more affordable. So those could be some ideas too. But I think it's really just kind of learning what interests them and what their budget is, and then go from there.
Okay, that sounds great. All right, so your clientele, are they mostly, let's say, retired families or couples who are traveling? They've got the time, they've got the budget, they just travel wherever they want? Or are they younger people, like a newly married couple? Or are they somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, I'd say somewhere in the middle. Probably families or kind of middle age range is probably my biggest clientele. I think just with that kind of being in my stage of life, naturally, that's kind of where initially more of my clientele has come from, just because that's who I know more of those people, and just word of mouth, and it kind of snowballs from there. But so I book for families, and now that could mean a variety of things. It could be a family with adult kids, taking them all on a cruise, or, want to take their small children to Disney World. But that's typically, I guess, more my average client.
So you've mentioned Disney several times. Obviously, that's one of your happy places. How many times have you been to Disney?
I've lost count. I don't know. It's got to be between maybe 8 to 10 times. I'm not entirely sure.
Wow,
I should
that's a
probably
lot.
go back and calculate, but it's a lot. I actually took my first solo trip to Disney last year, which was super fun. I was only there 2 or 3 nights, but after I decided to make this official travel business, I was telling my husband, and I kind of said it almost half jokingly, like, yeah, right, he's not going to want to leave him home with all the kids. I was like, I could really benefit for like having a trip on my own. I mean, there's so many things that I can't really focus on when the kids are there as much as I know about Disney. I'm not going to take them in the shops because they're going to buy everything. I'm not going to, they're going to sit through all the shows. And to my surprise, he's like, okay, when do you want to plan it? Like, I didn't even have to.
Wow. Didn't have to beg or anything.
No, I didn't. So I was very appreciative of his support, and it was, of course, a blast. It was during Food and Wine at Epcot. And so that's an example of the kind of thing that usually, we ride the big rides and are on our way. They're not interested in just moseying our way around the lake, stopping at all the little food kiosks. Like, that's not something for kids, but that's something a lot of people are interested in doing,
not a kid's thing.
As adults, especially. So it's like, well, I need to experience that. So it was really fun.
Well, now that you're out of the corporate world, what's your favorite part about being self-employed? Is it going on trips like this and having a tax write-off or something like that?
Yeah, that's for sure. And just the flexibility of it. I mean, I don't feel the pressure of, I've got all these deadlines I have to meet. And of course, I be accountable to my clients and make sure I do a good job for them. So, sometimes that might be busier than others, or, a week or 2 straight where I feel like it's, more involved. As soon as I get the kids to bed, I'm working for another 3 hours. And then other times it can be more, more relaxed, and I like being able to feel like I'm in control of my days, and I'm still able to be present, with my kids, like I've really, appreciated being able to do last 8-9 years. So I like the flexibility of it, and it just doesn't really feel like work to me. It's fun. Like I I have fun. I go, even if it's not travel related, I just love to go down rabbit trails and figure things out. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Let me learn more about that. And then I just, go from there. So I kind of feel like I can do the same thing with travel. It's like a fun hobby, but.
If somebody else, let's say a mom who's got young kids who might want to stay home and sort of do an agency like you're doing it, how do you get paid? You're a sort of, you don't charge your clients a fee. So how do you get paid from doing this?
Right. It's all commission based. So I would say probably most travel agents are this way. Now, some will charge a fee, but I don't. It's just all commission. So what a lot of people don't realize is that whether it's a hotel chain or cruise line, whatever, Disney, they have that commission built into their advertised prices. So you're not going to save money by going directly to a cruise line or directly to a hotel to book. You're going to get the same rate, and in some cases, even a better rate with an agent. Sometimes we may have access to group rates or things like that behind the scenes, but so it doesn't cost anything extra. It's not like I'm inflating their prices. It's just, I book it, through, my agent credentials, and that's how I get paid. So kind of like a real estate agent or something like that. It would be like booking travel without an agent is kind of like buying a home without a travel or without a real estate, a buyer's agent. You don't have to, but you're just leaving the money on the table. So the seller's agent will get it. So.
All right. So if someone has an unlimited budget, what one country or one area would you recommend they travel?
Great question. Again, I think it depends on what they're interested in, what kind of clientele it is. But if it were me, oh gosh, my dream vacation, I guess, one of my top couple is I would love to do an African safari. That's kind of a specific thing. I don't know how many people are going to, wow. I think if you want to do an African safari, you probably know you want to do an African safari. It's not so much, where do you think I should go? And I'll send you to Africa. But that's something kind of on my bucket list. And probably back to, the being inspired by my manager all those years ago, who was from South Africa. And he would share these pictures of safari trips that they went on. And it's just so fascinating. So I would love to do that. I think, the Bora Bora, all those places are just, I've not been to any of those places yet, but I definitely want to. And I think those are very kind of luxury dream vacations that I might, especially for a couple, romantic trip, something like that, I might recommend.
Okay. So how about the other end of the financial scale? If somebody had a very tight budget and wanted to go on a trip, where would you recommend? Don't say Disney.
Yeah. Yeah. Other than, not necessarily budget friendly, but it can be. I think a couple like the Caribbean destinations where the Riviera Maya area in Mexico can be very cost effective. Dominican Republic is one that is fairly affordable, and it's really nice. It's beautiful. We stayed in an all-inclusive there years ago, again, in our pre-kid days when it was easier to do that. And we loved it. It was beautiful. So I would definitely recommend that. Jamaica, Bahamas, all of those can be fairly affordable for what you get.
Okay, that sounds great. I'll be calling you soon. I need to go somewhere, anywhere.
Yeah, I can make that happen.
All right, I need to update my passport. It's expired. It's been so long since I've been anywhere.
No.
That's a no. I've only been out of the country once, and it was to Mexico, so it wasn't not an exotic place. Yeah. But I loved it there. It was. We flew to Cancun and then took a boat across to Isla Mujeres, if you know where that is.
Okay. Very nice. Did you have a good time?
I loved it. This was 15 years ago, probably. So it's been a while. Having to put kids through college sort of puts a cramp on everything else.
Kids are expensive.
They are expensive. All right, so I've got a lightning round for you here as we start to wind this down. I'll just give you quick questions, and you just give me like a 30-second answer. All right, mountains or beach?
Beach.
Why?
I like warm weather, for one. I do love to visit the mountains. Living in Atlanta, I mean, we can drive an hour north and be in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And so we do that probably once every year or two, just for, it's a nice long weekend getaway. And I love that. But for an extended vacation, especially, I probably don't want to feel like I'm cooped up in the mountains. I like to be at the beach. So.
Okay. Adults only or with kids?
I would say adults only, whenever I can get a chance to do it. I mean, traveling with kids is awesome. And hopefully we can do more of it as our kids are getting a little bit older, because we've mostly stayed a little bit closer to home with them being younger. But we're starting to branch out. We took them on their first cruise last year and doing another bigger cruise next year. But it's been a long time since we've had more than 2 nights away as a couple. So we're talking about planning that actually for next year, for our 20th anniversary. We're trying to figure out where we're going to go. But nice. More than a weekend, hopefully.
All right. Cruise or lake house?
Cruise. Again, I guess kind of lake, mountains. I don't know. I just like the open water. I'm not the hugest lake person. I like to be able to see what's underneath my feet. Not that you can't go to a lake and not get in the lake. I mean, you could just be at a lake. So again, for a weekend, a little retreat, that sounds very lovely. But for a vacation, I would rather.
Yeah. Rather go on the cruise. Okay.
On a cruise, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And I like being able to see multiple places, which is nice too.
All right. I may know the answer to this one already. Theme park or tourist attractions?
Theme park or tourist attractions? Theme park.
I figured that was going to be your answer.
Yeah. We love Disney. We love Universal too. Those are both, fairly easy access from Atlanta. But we love theme parks, and it's not a relaxing vacation by any means. I mean, I feel like every muscle in my body is pulled and I'm just a puddle of jello by the time I get to my room at night. But for some reason, I tell people, it's physically draining, but mentally it's rejuvenating. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's good for my mental health. It makes me happy, but it also makes me very tired. But I love it. And the kids love it. So that helps.
Yeah, that would not be my idea of fun. All those rides and sounds and lights and noise and people, that is not my idea of fun.
Yeah. So I liked rides. I've always liked rides and roller coasters and all that. But the older I get, the more I'm like, okay, I need to take some Dramamine before I get going for the day. I find myself being a little more bothered by them than I used to. So sometimes I have to.
I guess I was a prodigy because I've always been bothered by them.
Yeah. Well, I have always been bothered by certain ones, but things that used to not bother me have started to bother me. So my threshold has lowered a little bit.
Yeah, I do like to people watch in places like that. When I was a kid,
it's a good place to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, Astroworld, which is eventually bought out by Six Flags, was close enough to where I grew up that I could ride my bike there, so I could go there anytime I wanted. But I didn't like riding. I didn't like riding rides, so I would just go and just people watch, just hang out. I would ride the water rides because Houston was really, really hot in the summertime, so I would ride the water rides and cool off and get splashed on.
Yeah. Now that you mention that, I actually did grow up going to Six Flags a lot. We were probably 15, 20 minutes from Six Flags, and we would get passes a lot of years. So even though I didn't go up going to Disney and it wasn't a vacation, we would just go for the day. But so maybe that was kind of like the beginning of what got me into the theme park thing.
Probably. That's probably what did it.
Yeah.
Okay, last question here. Rental car or scooter?
Oh, I would say rental car. Yeah, definitely rental car. I like to be contained, feel safer, more secure. I don't know, especially depending on where I'm visiting. I don't even know if I trust myself to drive. Or it's funny, we went to, I told you we took our kids on our first cruise last year. It was just a short 4-night to the Bahamas. And we rented I don't know what you'd call it, a buggy. It wasn't a Jeep, but kind of like that we could all fit in, sort of an off-road vehicle. And weren't even thinking about the fact that they drive on the left side of the road. So we're like, oh, well, let's see how this goes. So we ventured, I don't know how far we went, maybe 20, 30 miles out from where we started and found a cool spot we wanted to go check out. And it was awesome. I'm glad we did it. But my husband drove the whole time. And of course, it's open air, so super loud. And I'm trying to yell directions to him and look at the GPS. And I was really proud of us because he makes fun of me that I'm a terrible navigator. And I was like, I think I was on my navigation game today when my life is dependent on it. I did a really good job.
Extra motivation.
And he didn't turn on the wrong side of the road a single time, but I'm glad we weren't on a scooter, even if it was open air.
Yeah, when I went to Eastern Mujeres, it's such a small island. You don't need a car there. We rented a golf cart and rode around the island in the golf cart, and that was fun. I enjoyed that, and I thought that's where I want to go. Someplace where I can ride in the golf cart and not have to drive a car and try to figure out which side of the road and get directions. I can just ride.
I like that. Yeah. I think I feel safer in a golf cart than a scooter.
Okay. So rental car or a golf cart?
Or golf cart. Oh, we're modifying the question. Depends on who it is, but maybe a golf cart. That would be fun. We had fun in our little off-road vehicle. I think that would be fun to try.
Okay. All right. So is there anything else that you would like to add that I haven't already asked about?
I don't really think so. I've enjoyed this. I'm just so excited you invited me to be here and honored that you would have me, and just excited to have a chance to share more about travel because it's something that I love, and about my business, Vacation Magic by Rachel. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I will put the link in the show description.
Okay. Thank you.
So our guest today has been travel agent Rachel Taylor. Rachel, thank you for joining the show. I've enjoyed having this conversation and having you on the show, and we'll continue to follow you on Twitter or X, whatever you call it. And I hope people will reach out to you when they plan their next trip.
And Facebook as well. I'm even more active on there.
Okay, that's awesome. So thanks a lot for joining me today. That's it for this episode of Stories from Real Life. Join us again next time for another great storytelling journey. Until then, don't forget to shine your light wherever you go. That was another edition of Stories from Real Life with your host, Melvin E. Edwards. Join us again next time for more stories about more things than you can imagine. Some of those true stories may even be about real life. See you next time.